Somewhere beneath the waves, an entire civilization is waiting to be found. A city with golden temples. Advanced technology centuries ahead of its time. A navy so powerful it conquered half the known world until a single night swallowed it whole. The ocean closed over it like a curtain. And for 2,400 years, no one has been able to prove it ever existed. Atlantis. The most famous lost city in human history. Referenced in thousands of books, films, and scientific papers. Debated by philosophers, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists alike. The ultimate symbol of everything humanity has lost, the idea that somewhere out there, buried beneath time and earth and water, is proof that we were once so much greater than we are now. Atlantis was not discovered by a treasure hunter. It was not revealed by a psychic. It was described, in precise, almost clinical detail, by a single Greek philosopher named Plato in 360 BC. And in 2023, a team of geologists analyzing satellite imagery of the Sahara Desert found a circular formation of ancient rock rings in northwestern Egypt, 1.9 miles across, that matches Plato's description of Atlantis almost exactly. This is either the greatest coincidence in the history of archaeology, or Atlantis was never under the ocean at all. Today, we are going to find 4 lost cities, and we are going to discover that the truth behind every single one of them is stranger and more human.
Let's begin with gold, because it is always gold. The year is 1541. A Spanish conquistador named Francisco de Orellana stands at the edge of the Amazon jungle in what is now Ecuador, staring into a wall of green so thick that the trees block the sun entirely. Behind him, 4,000 soldiers, horses, and war dogs. Ahead of him, nothing visible, just jungle, just heat, just rumor. The rumor is El Dorado. El Dorado, the Golden One, was not originally a city. It was a man, a ritual practiced by the Muisca people of present-day Colombia, in which a new tribal chief would cover his body entirely in gold dust, paddle a raft to the center of a sacred lake called Guatavita, and dive in, offering the gold to the gods below. Witnesses who survived the Spanish conquest described it to their conquerors, and those conquerors heard only one word: gold. By the time the story reached Spain, the Golden Man had become a golden city. And by the time the story reached Francisco de Orellana, the Golden City had become an entire golden empire. Somewhere in the Amazon, a civilization with streets paved in gold, temples lined with gold leaf, a king who bathed in liquid gold every morning. None of this was true. All of it was believed completely. Orellana's expedition into the Amazon is one of the most catastrophic human disasters ever recorded. Within 3 months, the horses had died. The war dogs had died. Disease had killed hundreds of men. The jungle had defeated every tactical advantage the Spanish military possessed. By the time the survivors limped out of the Amazon 2 years later, the army of 4,000 had been reduced to a handful of starving men with nothing to show for it. Orellana was ruined financially, politically, professionally. He tried to go back in 1545, convinced the city was still out there. He died on that second expedition. The Amazon killed him before he found a single gold coin. But here is the extraordinary thing. El Dorado was not pure fiction. It was a distortion of something real. In 2010, archaeologists using soil analysis and aerial photography began mapping the Amazon basin in unprecedented detail. What they found overturned everything we believed about the pre-Columbian Americas. Beneath the jungle, across an area the size of France, they found evidence of a sophisticated civilization. Raised agricultural fields, complex road networks, earthwork structures, hundreds of interconnected settlements. Geoglyphs, massive geometric shapes carved into the earth, stretch across the Bolivian Amazon for hundreds of miles. Some researchers now estimate this civilization may have housed up to 8 million people at its peak. It was not a city of gold. It was something more impressive, a civilization of extraordinary agricultural and engineering sophistication, hidden for centuries beneath jungle growth that exploded after European disease wiped out its population in the 1500s. In 1927, a pilot named Charles Lindbergh was flying over the Mosquitia jungle of Honduras, one of the most remote and impenetrable rainforests on Earth, when he reported seeing, through a break in the canopy, what appeared to be the white tops of ancient stone structures below. He had no way to land, no way to investigate. He noted the coordinates, filed a report, and flew on. The story circulated for decades. Honduran oral tradition already had a name for the place: La Ciudad Blanca, the White City, a city of extraordinary wealth, the legend said, where a giant stone jaguar god sat at the center of a white plaza, watching over treasures hidden for 5 centuries from the Spanish conquest. Some versions of the legend said the city was cursed, that anyone who entered would contract a disease that would rot them from the outside in. For 80 years, explorers tried to find it. All of them failed. The Mosquitia jungle is not simply difficult terrain. It is aggressive, hostile, and alive in a way that feels intentional. Venomous snakes at every elevation. Insects carrying leishmaniasis, a parasitic disease that, left untreated, does exactly what the legend said. It disfigures and destroys. Jaguar territories. No roads, no trails. Flooding so severe that entire valleys become temporary lakes during rainy season. The jungle does not tolerate visitors. Then, in 2012, everything changed. A team led by archaeologist Chris Fisher and filmmakers from the production company that would later publish in National Geographic flew a small aircraft over the Mosquitia jungle, equipped with LiDAR technology, light detection, and ranging, a laser mapping system that fires millions of laser pulses per second at the jungle canopy and uses the tiny fraction that reach the ground to build a 3-dimensional map of whatever lies beneath the trees. What the LiDAR revealed was staggering. Beneath the jungle, completely invisible from the air, completely invisible on foot, was a massive ancient settlement. Earthwork structures, plaza complexes, a central mound nearly 100 feet high, a network of roads connecting multiple sites across a 35 square mile area, agricultural terracing carved into hillsides, and at the center of the largest plaza, a cache of carved stone objects partially buried in the soil. Jaguars, vultures, serpents, human figures with extended arms that archaeologists described as emerging from the earth, like they were reaching upward from burial. The team that went in on foot to verify the LiDAR data in 2015 encountered all the horrors the legend promised. Several members contracted leishmaniasis from sandfly bites. One researcher lost portions of facial tissue. The jungle was as hostile as every story had warned, but the city was real. And what it revealed was not a civilization that had been hiding. It was a civilization that had been erased. The same European contact that destroyed El Dorado destroyed the White City. Disease moved through the rainforest faster than any Spanish soldier ever could. By the time Europeans physically reached Mosquitia, the city had already been empty for generations. The jungle had taken it back with extraordinary speed. 500 years of growth piling up over plazas and roads until even aircraft flying overhead a century later saw nothing but canopy. The curse that protected the White City was not a supernatural jaguar god. It was smallpox. Moving silently through a population that had never encountered it, killing perhaps 90% of the people before a single Spanish boot touched Honduran soil. The most protected city in the Americas was not protected by walls or warriors or geography. It was protected by the tragedy that had already emptied it. La Ciudad Blanca exists. Researchers are still mapping it, and every new LiDAR scan reveals it was larger than anyone initially estimated. The White City was not lost. It was grieving. Here is something extraordinary. There is a lost city you can see, not with satellite imagery, not with LiDAR, not through the lens of a remote-operated submarine in the Pacific abyss. You can put on a snorkel, drop beneath the surface of a turquoise bay on the southern coast of Greece, open your eyes, and look directly at streets that were last walked 5,000 years ago. Pavlopetri, the oldest known submerged city in the world. It sits beneath roughly 3 to 4 meters of water in Laconia Bay, off the coast of the Peloponnese Peninsula. Its streets are visible, its building foundations are visible, courtyard walls, storage chambers, what appears to be a town square, a cemetery. 12 buildings identified so far, with more emerging each time. Archaeologists conduct a new survey of the 33,000 square meters of ruins spread across the seafloor. It was first scientifically documented in 1967 by an oceanographer named Nicholas Fleming, who was surveying the bay for an unrelated project and simply looked down and saw a city beneath him. It had been there the entire time. Fishermen in the area had been dropping anchor in the ruins for centuries, almost certainly aware that something was down there, but possessing no framework for understanding what it was. Pavlopetri was a functioning city sometime between 3000 BC and 1100 BC, the Bronze Age. During that period, it was likely a significant commercial hub, positioned perfectly to control maritime trade routes across the eastern Mediterranean. The Mycenaean Greeks, the civilization that may have fought the real war behind the legend of Troy, almost certainly walked these streets, traded in these courtyards, buried their dead in these graves. Then, around 1000 BC, something sank it. The most likely explanation is a series of earthquakes. The Greek peninsula sits on one of the most seismically active zones on Earth that caused the land beneath Pavlopetri to drop between 3 and 4 meters. Gradually or suddenly, the sea claimed it. And because it was not buried under jungle or desert, but under shallow, clear, relatively still water, it simply stayed, intact, waiting for 3,000 years. When researchers from the University of Nottingham conducted a full digital mapping project in 2009, they used underwater sonar and GPS-linked survey equipment to create the first complete three-dimensional map of the site. What they found added entirely new layers to the already known ruins: additional buildings, a complex of roads, rock-cut tombs. The city was significantly larger than the 1967 survey had indicated. Pavlopetri presents a question that every other lost city avoids. We find lost cities, and we mourn them from a distance. We interpret LiDAR scans. We study satellite images. We read what ancient historians wrote about civilizations they themselves considered ancient. The loss is always mediated by time and technology and the sheer impossibility of being there. Pavlopetri you can touch. 3 meters of water, clear enough on a calm day to see the street grid from the surface, and yet 5,000 years gone. The people who lived here are as unreachable as the people of El Dorado or the White City. The water is not actually the barrier. Time is always the barrier. That is what every lost city teaches us, if we look closely enough. So why can't we stop looking? There are more archaeologists, more satellite imaging programs, more LiDAR surveys, more underwater robotics expeditions, searching for lost cities right now than at any point in human history. We have found dozens in the last 20 years alone, in Cambodia, in the Amazon, beneath the North Sea, off the coasts of India, and Egypt and Greece. And every single discovery generates more funding for the next search. The rational answer is that lost cities contain historical information, data about trade routes, agricultural systems, climate patterns, migration movements. Understanding the past helps us understand the present. That is true, but it is not the real answer. The real answer is that we find lost cities so compelling because of what they prove about impermanence. Every civilization that has ever existed has believed, at some level, that it would last forever. The Romans built roads they expected to stand for eternity, and some of them are still being used. The Byzantines built the Theodosian walls and genuinely believed no force on earth could break them. And for 1,000 years, they were right. The Muisca people performed the El Dorado ritual at Lake Guatavita for generations without any concept that within a century, their entire world would be gone. And now we dig up their streets and wonder what happened. We are looking for lost cities because we are looking for a guarantee that civilization survives. And every single time we find one, we discover instead that it didn't. That the jungle reclaimed it, that the ocean took it, that disease emptied it before the conquerors arrived, that a single night ended a 1,000-year dynasty. And we keep looking anyway. Because somewhere in that impulse, the refusal to accept that extraordinary things disappear without trace is the most human thing about us. The insistence that the past is still accessible, that the story is not over, that beneath the water, beneath the trees, beneath the sand, something magnificent is waiting to be found. Atlantis may be a geological formation in the Sahara Desert. El Dorado may be the memory of a civilization erased by the people who were searching for it. The White City may be a wound left by a plague that moved faster than history could record it. And Pavlopetri sits visible and unreachable in 3 meters of clear water, its streets laid out like a question no one can answer. We have not stopped believing in lost cities. We have simply gotten better equipment to search for them. And that, right there, is the most interesting thing about every civilization that has ever existed, including ours,